Hey everybody, it's Ron. Every Monday through Thursday, we talk about how some event in business history reshaped the world. But on Fridays, we talk about something completely different. These are the stories that went completely off the rails. They may have still changed the business world, just not in the way anyone wanted. These are the business bloopers. Let's say it's a Tuesday morning in March of 2013. A Lululemon store on Michigan Avenue in Chicago. The kind of store that doesn't feel like a store. Warm wood fixtures, soft lighting, a community board on the wall covered in flyers for weekend runs and free yoga classes. The kind of place where the staff knows your name and asks about how your practice is going. The yoga class itself wrapped up just a little while ago. A handful of women who have been practicing together for months are drifting into the store section. The way regulars do. Not necessarily to buy anything, just to be in the space. They know each other. They know the staff. This is their place as much as it is anyone's. One of them approaches the counter with a bag. She sets it on the counter quietly, says something to the manager, and slides the black pants across. The manager nods and processes the return, and they exchange a look that doesn't require much explanation. A few minutes later, another woman comes up to the counter. She also has a bag. She also sets it down. She glances over and recognizes the woman who just finished her return. They were in class together this morning. There's a brief moment of eye contact. Neither one of them says anything specific. They don't have to. The manager looks up from the register, and there are two more people standing in line behind this lady, both of them holding bags. Both of them from the Tuesday morning class. Something's wrong. Not one customer wrong, not an isolated complaint wrong, pattern wrong. And in a store built entirely around community and trust, that particular kind of wrong travels fast. Okay. So how did we get here? From Business Basics, I'm Ron Trucks, and this is Business Bloopers, the weekly podcast where we unpack the business decisions that sounded smart until they weren't. Every Friday, I'll take you through a real story where something went off the rails. Sometimes it's hilarious, sometimes it's painful, but always it's a reminder that even smart people screw up in business, and we'll look at why it matters. This is Business Bloopers. In 1998, a man named Chip Wilson walked into a yoga class in Vancouver, British Columbia, looked around at what the other students were wearing, and had a reaction that was less zen and more entrepreneur. The clothing was wrong. Baggy cotton that soaked up sweat and lost its shape within 20 minutes, on people who were moving through poses that demanded exactly the opposite. Wilson had spent years in the surf and skateboard apparel industry, building technical fabrics for people who actually moved in their clothes, and he knew what performance material felt like. What he was looking at on that studio floor wasn't it. So he opened the first Lululemon store in Vancouver later that year, operating out of a design studio that doubled as a yoga space at night. The product he built to solve the problem was centered on a proprietary fabric blend he called Luon, a lightweight, stretchy, moisture-wicking fabric that fitted in a way that supported movement rather than fighting it. The black Luon yoga pant became the store's signature item, retailing at around $98, and women paid that price willingly because the product earned every dollar of it. But Wilson didn't just want to build a product. He wanted to build a world around it. Lululemon stores hosted free yoga classes taught by local instructors who doubled as brand ambassadors. Community boards on the walls listed weekend runs and neighborhood events. Staff knew customers by name and regulars knew each other from class. By 2013, the company had more than 250 stores worldwide, annual revenue of $1.37 billion, and a customer base that didn't just buy the brand. They wore it as an identity. Lululemon's CEO, Christine Day, had overseen much of that growth and was regarded as one of the sharper retail executives in North America. Nike and Under Armour were watching Lululemon closely enough that competitive pressure had become a compliment. The stock had climbed for years. The one variable nobody had fully solved was Wilson himself. He had a history of saying things publicly that landed badly. Comments about birth control and working mothers framed around who Lululemon was actually built for. The board of directors knew the pattern. They had never quite figured out what to do about it. For a while, it didn't matter because the brand was growing too fast for one man's mouth to slow it down. Until it wasn't. The products being returned to the desk started in March 2013, and they didn't stop. Women were bringing back their black Luon pants, not because of fit, not because of color, but because when they bent forward in yoga class, the fabric became essentially transparent. The Luon material that had built Lululemon's entire reputation had been unknowingly altered during a production change, and the new version was failing the most basic test a yoga pant can fail. Lululemon pulled 17% of their total inventory in a single move, clearing it from every shelf, every showroom, and the website. Christine Day went on a conference call with investors and said the team was devastated. New quality controls, new supplier oversight, a 90-day timeline to get the product back in stores. The financial damage was projected at $40 to $50 million in lost revenue, most of it hitting in the second quarter. The pants came back. Same-store sales kept growing. By the summer of 2013, Day was making genuine progress rebuilding confidence, because a product recall is painful, but it is survivable. And then Chip Wilson sat down with Bloomberg TV's Trish Regan on November 5th. She asked about the sheerness problem, and Wilson answered it in his way, on camera, on live television. Quote, "Frankly, some women's bodies just don't actually work for the yoga pants. It's really about the rubbing through the thighs, how much pressure is there over a period of time, how much they use it." End quote. The moment control was lost, it's not hard to identify. It was the moment that sentence left his mouth. 3 days later, Wilson posted a video apology on Facebook and YouTube, saying he was sad that, quote, "for the repercussions of my actions," end quote. Not for the comment, for the consequences of it all. Customers caught that distinction immediately, and one wrote directly on the Facebook post, "How about apologizing to the customers he fat-shamed?" Chief Financial Officer John Curry recaptured the whole year in a single line on a conference call shortly after. Quote, "You always hear the phrase that any PR is good PR. What we learned is that's not always the case." Christine Day had been managing the recall professionally for months when Wilson's interview landed. She had a plan, it was working, and then it wasn't. 2 weeks after the Bloomberg interview, Chief Product Officer Sheree Watterson was gone. In June, Day herself announced her resignation, and Lululemon's stock dropped 17% in a single trading session on that news alone. The stock had been trading nearly $82 before the recall and closed out 2013 around $60, a 27% decline over a year that had started with the brand at the peak of its power. By December, Chip Wilson had resigned as non-executive chairman, and by January 2014, Laurent Poitevin, formerly president of Tom's Shoes, was coming in as the new CEO. 3 top executives replaced in 12 months, and a board that had known Wilson's pattern for years was now rebuilding its entire leadership team around the damage that pattern had finally caused. December 2013 produced one final detail that is almost impossible to believe. A Lululemon store in Bethesda, Maryland, put a sign in its window actually referencing Wilson's rubbing thighs comment. Customers photographed it and posted it to social media within hours, and the company apologized and pulled it down the same day. A store had accidentally reopened the wound the founder had created in the founder's own retail space during the same month he was stepping down from the board. Now, as you may realize, the brand recovered. New leadership, tighter quality controls, and a customer base loyal enough to give Lululemon another chance proved more durable than one very bad year. Then, in early 2025, Lululemon launched a new collection called Get Low. Within days, customers were posting on Reddit that the leggings were see-through when they squatted or bent over, and the company pulled them from online sale after 3 days. Chip Wilson, now the company's second largest shareholder, went on LinkedIn and called it a new low and blamed the board's lack of experience. The founder, who had blamed women's thighs in 2013, was now criticizing the board for see-through pants in 2025. Some things apparently don't change. Something I like to do when I share these business blooper stories is end by spending just a little bit of time looking at what actually went wrong. So in this case, what went wrong? On the surface, this looks like a founder who couldn't stay quiet, and that's part of it. But the real problem runs deeper than one bad interview. The recall was a quality control failure, and it was being handled. DAI had a plan. The product came back and the numbers were recovering. That part of the story ends fine. What ended badly was something the board had been aware of for years and never actually fixed, which was that the company's founder had demonstrated a pattern of saying things publicly that damaged the brand, and no real mechanism existed to prevent it from happening again. Now, let's be clear, that's not a PR problem. That's a governance problem. When you know a risk exists and you build nothing around it, you haven't managed the risk. You've just decided to hope it doesn't come up at the wrong moment. It came up at the worst possible moment, during a recovery, and it was done on live television. The broader pattern here shows up in a lot of founder-led companies. The same personality that builds something extraordinary can also be the thing that puts it at risk. And the people around that founder sometimes avoid the hard conversations because the business is doing well enough that it doesn't feel urgent until it does. The takeaway isn't that founders should be silenced. It's that unchecked risk doesn't disappear just because you're winning. It just waits. I'm Ron Trucks, and this is Business Bloopers, part of the Business Daily podcast lineup, where we look at how business really works and sometimes how it really doesn't. New episodes drop every weekday, with fun, full-length blooper stories like this one on Fridays, and quick-hit business history episodes the rest of the week. Follow us on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, YouTube, or wherever you listen. And if you're enjoying the ride, don't forget to leave a quick review. It helps more people find the story behind the business. And if you're wanting to actually understand business better, without the fluff or the buzzwords or the MBA language, start by visiting us at bsnsDAILYpodcasts.com.